Well, welcome everybody, welcome to the showdown. We've got the G430 Driver. I've brought it in because it's just gone past embargo. If you haven't checked out, the full review of this club, make sure you go and check that out above. But yeah, right there, Lee. Right there. So I thought I'd bring this in today just because I'm impressed with it.
And you're trying to sell me a new golf club?
I'm not trying to sell you anything. Absolutely not. You'll do that to yourself. What are you bringing?
Well, as you're bringing that, and it is spookily exactly the same as what I play, 9-degree, max head.
Yeah.
Here she is, the wife.
The wife?
The wife is here.
Okay. So you're bringing the
G425.
425. So the previous generation to this one.
Yep.
So this one is going over the top of this one.
Yeah. So basically, I've brought the wife in, and today I'm going to test a younger model.
Well,
I haven't told her that though.
You're not telling her yet. So for this test, what we're going to do is we're going to obviously fit ourselves into the correct loft and everything for us. Lee is going to be using the shaft that he uses, which is the Tensai Orange
65X
X-Flex. And I've got the 6.0 Hazardous Smoke 60 gram, which Ping kindly sent through with this particular head. We're going to put them against each other. You've got some ideas on exactly what we have to do in order to pick those numbers.
Yep.
So what is that? Just so everyone's aware.
The first thing we pick is the looks. So what do the looks like? What are the aesthetics of the golf club? Now, considering the generation, there's a lot of difference, so there's lots to talk about.
Yep.
Sound and feel. Now, we know this is quite noisy, so does that do the same? Technology, is there any difference in the technology that they're talking to? And then we've got the numbers-based system of distance and dispersion.
Right, Lee. On that note, let's hit some balls and let's see how they perform.
Let's take the wife out. Okay, Dan, so I'm going to start with the faithful, the G425. I put this in the bag 3 or 4 months ago, and it's actually not looked back since. And anyone who's watched the East Sussex National or the Christmas special will know that this club has transformed my driving. So that's got a lot to live up to. As you look at this club, it just looks superb. From the top, you've got the turbulators there to help with the aerodynamics of the golf club. And then you've got this dragonfly sort of crown at the top with these stripes. So it actually looks really aesthetically pleasing when you're looking down at the ball. Some people may not like the turbulators, but me personally, I think they look great. And also the fact that the face is kind of darkened as well. When you're sort of lining the ball up, everything about it suits my eye, which is why I've enjoyed having it in the bag for the last 3 months. Now for the 430, now this has got the hazardous shaft in. When we took the data for the numbers, we did swap the shafts out, so just putting that out there. As you look down, initially, there's not a lot of difference when you quickly visualize down, but the first thing I notice is how shiny the top is compared to the G425. Around the back, you've got this sort of lipstick. Underneath, you've now got this yellow and sort of silvery looking colours going on. I think when I first saw pictures of this, I called it the G430 Rad Speed. Because I thought from the pictures it looked a little bit like a Cobra Rad Speed with the colours, but actually it pains me to say this, but the younger model looks better than the wife. And probably sounds better.
Well, I'm going to focus on golf clubs rather than wives and girlfriends for my little chat about this, but I understand what Lee's saying when he looks down at the G425. Very clean looking club, as in, yes, there are turbulators, but there's not a lot else going on. And I do like the look of that kind of matte finish when you look down at it. But from when we did the testing of this driver 2 years ago now, I believe it is, the noise, well, it's just deafening. When you go on the golf course and you hear someone using this G425 driver, you can hear it from all over the golf course. It just echoes around. And that's kind of the one thing that kind of put me off this driver. I felt that it was giving good numbers, good ball speed out of it, giving you 3 options of the LST and then the straight flight technology as well. But just that noise, like, could they improve it? Well, improve it they have, and they've absolutely nailed it as far as I'm concerned. The sound off this club in comparison to the 425 is just night and day. I think they've probably focused on what their tour players have been telling them on their ranges, that they want a driver that just dulls down just that fraction, and they've absolutely nailed it when they've released the G430. Visually on top of the club, a little bit more going on, like Lee said, a little bit shinier. But what I really like from this driver is you've got the turbulators on top there, is just this little bar at the back, and it kind of almost like frames it up quite nicely. It almost draws the ball into it a little bit more. A lot of drivers out there use maybe a little logo on top of the head, but with the Ping, you're not seeing that, but those turbulators just draw the ball in, allowing you to center that club face up a little bit easier.
So let's talk tech, and let's start with the PING G425. Now the PING G425 has a Dragonfly crown technology. It has a forged face and internal ribbon for a pleasing sound and a better feel. The Max model has the highest MOI of the three, and the aerodynamic turbulators are on top in order to help reduce that drag. Moving on now to the PING G430, the transition design has a 0.1 of an inch shallower face and a 6% thinner face. Spinsistency offers less loft, lower on the face for more ball speed. Technology within the head gives a stiffer crown and ribs to control the sound of that driver. As like the G425, the Max has the most MOI out of the three models, and with the movable weight on the back, you can adjust the center of gravity. So Dan, we've hit them, we've talked about them, now it's time to score them. So, looks first, where are you going?
G430, all
G430.
day.
Reason?
Love the look of it on the top there. I just think it just draws my eye into the crown of the club. I think it's a beautiful look. I like the look of that, don't get me wrong. I do like the G425,
yeah.
But this has just got a little bit more zest.
Yeah. For me, I liked the G425 because of how clean it was and how, like, you know, it's very pingy.
Yeah.
I like this more now because it's loud. I like loud things. I love, even though I called it the rad speed, I love the extra accents on the top. I love these little bubbles. It's just, it looks a lot better driver, and I hate to say that because I love the G425.
The other thing I would say as well is if you put them on a shelf next to each other, this one is kind of a bit boring, isn't it?
Like, it is, yeah.
It's a bit, whereas now we've got a bit more colour.
Yeah, and colour is always going to attract the eye better, isn't it? So, yeah, unfortunately, darling, the girlfriend's got the point.
Okay, what's the next point?
Sound and feel. Now, this is an easy one for you.
So sound and feel is 100% G430. I'm so glad they've listened to their tour players, if they have listened to them. I imagine that's where it's come from, but definitely dulling that sound down. You know, I can blend into the crowd a little bit more with the sound of this one, whereas that one I've got to hit a good drive.
Yeah. And I don't think I'd ever say this because I love how loud this is.
Yeah. But
that's loud enough to please me, but not tonky enough to offend me. So I'm sorry, but the 430 again, and I never ever thought I would, because I love the sound of this, especially in the trees, and like you say, everyone knows you've hit a good drive, but that's...
Or not always a good drive.
Or not always, yeah, sometimes. So yeah, 430 as well. Technology?
Well, I think tech has moved on. They've certainly packed a little bit more into this driver. Not afraid to move things about a little bit with their driver. So I would get, again, tech, I've got to go G430.
You have to go across to the 430 because it's everything this has got and a bit more. And if you go in the LST version of this, you get the carbon wrap crown. So they've certainly moved the technology on.
Just on that though, that's just to reduce the weight on the crown, isn't it? To be able to position weight in different positions in the head.
Especially on the LST version where it is so unforgiving that it helps the MOI be raised up for the LST version. So it's a shame because I think the carbon wrap technology...
So this is like 3-0 up already on both accounts.
3-0 up, yeah. And if we look at the numbers now...
Well, let's do that. You start with your numbers and then we'll come on to my numbers.
Okay, so starting with my numbers, and we'll start with my club, the G425. Now, I'm clearly not having a great swing day today, but these are the numbers that we had. They were done at the same time, so we'll go with it. Average ball speed, 155.2, pretty low, and I know that's low for me with that club, but that is what it is. The 148 and 159. There's quite a bit of difference in there. Launching at 16, it's normally where I launch that club. It is a bit high launching for me, but it sort of normally stays on the planet. Spin really low at 2063, and this was really interesting for me because I thought this was quite a spinny club, but there is a big difference of 2,000 revs between shot number 2 and shot number 4. So the inconsistencies are mine over the face. Average distance 261, not horrendous, but the one out at 276 is probably more where I'd want to be with the distance. Moving on to the G430, taken at the same time, really, really consistent. Ball speed 162.1, that's 7 miles an hour up on the 425. Launching at 13.5, perfect launch window for me for a driver. Spin at 2,746, possibly a little bit not too high for where you'd want it at sort of 2.5, but there was one at 3.3 there. But average distance 271 with one out there at 280. Longest to longest for good shots, the 430 is 4 yards further. Unfortunately, the distance is the winner, and that's the 430 on this occasion.
Some really interesting numbers from what I'm getting from the 425 to the 430. If we start off with ball speed, 150.3 on an average with Lee's 425 compared to the new 430 at 153.6. So I'm gaining just over 3 miles an hour off the club face, which is quite big, to be fair. Launching them both the same, 11.5 and 11.4. Spin, 2,000 revs with the G425. That's quite low compared to 2.6 from what I'm getting out of the 430, which is kind of where I would want to be. Peaking out 25 yards high out of the G425 compared to 31 yards high out of the G430. And then look at the difference in yardages, 247 out of the G425 compared to 258 carry out of the G430. So, you know, what's that, 11-yard gain, 3 mile an hour gain in ball speed and 11-yard gain in the overall carry distance. But what about the circle of trust?
The circle of trust for you is so negligible between the two.
Is it?
So 430, 337 square yards.
Okay, so how much did you say?
337 is the surface area of where all your 5 balls landed.
That's not bad, is it?
425, 313. So we're talking 24 square yards between them. So the 425 was better on dispersion, but you do that again. You're swapping them around. Like, it's so close.
Yeah.
But the 425 gets the point for your dispersion.
What about you?
For me, I'm back to normal with my square yardage ellipse. 430, 984 square yards.
Okay.
Mainly left to right.
Yeah.
And the 425, which I've been so accurate with out on the golf course, 1,444.
So your 430's beating it?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Distance, it's 10 yards longer. It's a better dispersion for me. I am feeling and seeing as someone who plays the G425, the extra help that's giving me. So if that rounds up, that means the 430 has won 4-1.
For me?
For you?
Yeah.
And I've definitely cheated on the wife because it's a 5-0 whitewash.
That's impressive.
For 430. Now, like I said, I play the Ping, I love the Ping, and I've always said, you know, is the next generation worth changing? Like, I would change now if that was available to buy at the time of this filming. And
what I would say is, I know the numbers are different, but again, like you said, if we did this test again, how would they compare again?
Yeah.
Like, it's, you know, shot for shot, strike for strike, all of those sorts of things. But this is, for me, this is absolutely a game-changing improvement.
100%.
With it. Looks-wise, I love it. Feel-wise, I love it. Sound, fantastic. Numbers, impressive. It doesn't, like, it needs to be tested, isn't it? Oh. It's one of those drivers, if you're a Ping lover, if you love Ping, even if you don't love Ping, definitely worth having a go with this driver.
Do you know what I think they've done, though, this time? Is sometimes people go, Ping is an old man's brand.
Do they? Who says that?
Well, you know, you hear it, don't you? Sometimes, like, Ping's an old man's brand because it's not loud enough. I think now with this just change of aesthetics, it is now more noticeable to the younger market. And I'm sorry, but it is so much better than that.
But we want to know what you think. Are you somebody that's in the game of Ping? Would you use Ping products? We'd like to hear from you guys. Would you consider changing? I always sort of say to people, you know, if you're in a model with a driver, maybe look another generation on. This is changing. Down in the comments, what do you think about the G430? What do you think about the reviews that you've seen on the G430, and would you go and test it? Anything you want to say?
See you later.
Don't forget, if you're new to the channel and you like what you're seeing from these videos, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you all again on the next showdown.